Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi hadana li hadza wa ma kunna linahtadiya laula an hadanallah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh la nabiyya ba'dah. Alhamdulillah, we are gathered here for this session for Islamophobia, how to combat Islamophobia through da'wah or interfaith dialogue, inshallah. So first, I'd just like to go through the problems that we have here as a Muslim in America. So some people say that Islamophobia is a myth. There is no such a thing. So we see in the news, it's very prevalent, especially during after post 9/11 and 2010, the ground mosque the Ground Zero Mosque in New York. So that was like the intense Islamophobia. So you can see a lot of news reporting about the protest and rally, and as well as some anti-Islam ads on the buses. They put the ads, showing all these graphics of the 9/11 and the ISIS, and also some of the subway. And the subway, you can see some of the the billboard. They put some of the anti-Islam ad as well. This is in front of the church. Jesus teach forgiveness, but Muhammad teach revenge. So some kind of anti-Islam ad as well. And then the drawings, all these caricatures, if you can see the social media, it's full of this. Oops. And also, if you go to the like a bookstores, many of the bestseller, at that times, a lot of books, attacking Islam. And also, not only that, the news filled with the graphics of the brutality of, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all the graphics details, and then the website, movies. Also, in Oregon, we received the newspaper. If you subscribe to newspaper, inside the newspaper, they put DVD. So the DVD is free, and DVD is, they call it like Obsession, the title, and it's about Muslim pretending to be peaceful, but in fact they are like lying. So this a lot of, and this one is the news. So people, when they see this, it's like they're scared of Muslims. And then the impact, there's a lot of hate crimes. There are many, like 2010. You probably remember some masjid got burned in Oregon. There is one in Corvallis. And then I think the Midwest also, there's some lady pushed somebody on the subway, right? And then this middle school boy got arrested because he created this science fair, and then they thought it's a bomb. And the impact also, you can see a lot of Muslims scared of identifying themselves as Muslim, and some even leaving the religion of Islam. They left, and then the fastest growing beliefs right now is non-belief. It's atheism is the fastest, agnosticism and atheism is the fastest growing right now. So because people hate religion, religion is source of conflict, source of bloodshedding, they just don't want to deal with religion anymore. Including some of the cases here. So what is exactly Islamophobia? So we try to root cause it to different factors. This is multi-factors problems. So one of them is like because of they feel threatened. So people feel threatened because what they see in the news, like they don't trust Muslim because they thought that Muslim is basically enemy within. Muslim is like against constitution. Muslim will try to kill me or subdue me. Like all these kind of problems. The problem probably also the bad experience they saw. Not only in the news, but maybe some Muslims they never smile or they never encounter or they treat them not really good experience. So this is something that they might cause Islamophobia. And also ignorance, for sure. Some, they feel arrogance. This is because of racism. They feel like we are like brown color is inferior, compared to white. So this exists. This is a fact. So some people have that kind of mentality. Also conflict of interest. So for some groups, Muslims seen as a threat. Like Muslims growing fast in America, right? People converting to Islam, they see like this is threat. They take over, my segments of believers. So that's why they try to also, give some bad image to block that growing. So that's why we need da'wah. So we all know the importance of da'wah. Allah mentioned many places in the Quran. And then the importance of da'wah is not only try to invite people to Islam, but also to educate, create understanding, not only, so clearly clarify the misconception. It's not only like inviting people to Islam, but clear their misconception, stereotype about Islam, and eliminate difficulties living in the society. Imagine like Muslims, we just seclude ourselves in the masjid and never do da'wah. When we go to grocery, we deal with non-Muslims. Right, so this will cause difficulties. People will look at us suspiciously. People will not give us, easy access or easy anything like the airport, everything, because we leave the da'wah. So this was the importance of da'wah. And also Rasulullah SAW said, whoever guides somebody to goodness, Allah will give rewards. So this is one of our beliefs. Like when we do da'wah, the reward is abundant and also give us barakah. We always get barakah, easy way out from every, problems because of Allah give blessing in da'wah. So when we do da'wah, we should know the situation. We have to deal with different range of audience, families, relatives, friends, neighbors, because we are living here, we settle down here. We need to, aware of our society, our communities. And then before we do da'wah, we need to also understand the level of the knowledge of our audience. You cannot just talk, like academically to somebody like middle school or, or senior that, doesn't know anything about Islam, right? So you have to know the audience, whether they are, highly educated or not, whether they are conservative or liberals. So or the background. If they're atheists, you cannot just, for example, one case like when atheists quote us like violence verses of the Quran, and then somebody, the Muslims start quoting back the violence verse of the Bible, the atheists will laugh at us. Like, I don't believe in the Bible either. So we need to know who's the person, what we give da'wah. And also understanding whether they understand understand the Islam history or the sources of teachings. So there are a lot of factors that we need to understand. And then before we make da'wah, we need to have good relationship with Allah. So before we do anything, we have to have good intention. We have to have a moral characters, akhlaq. Because this is, I think everybody knows, people here, they hate hypocrisy. A lot of people leave religion because of hypocrisy. They look up on somebody, and then that somebody, do something against what they're saying. So that's, it's hypocrisy. So we, as a Muslim, Allah mentioned in the Quran, right, that Allah hates people who say that they don't do. So this is something that we have to be careful about. And also, we have to make sure our da'wah is not because of other intention, like money, power, or women, Because sometimes you do da'wah, you want to get a wife, for example, right? So this is something that, you have to clear the intention before we do it. And also the knowledge. Before you do da'wah, we have to have communication skills. Try to perfect our language, because sometimes when you talk to somebody and your English is not understandable by the person, it's giving them, hard time to understand the points that you want to send across. And also the humility. Sometimes I see many of my friends, when they do da'wah, they feel like they are better than others. Like they feel like, they patronize, they criticize the other people's belief. That's not the right methods, because they will, feel defensive, and instead of listening to your points, they will, criticize you back, basically. There's it's not productive. So you have to also understand the culture of the people that you, are talking to, and have listening skills. When people talk, don't think they're an object of da'wah, like an object. They're a person, they're a human being. You have to listen. You have to, just, pretending to listen and try to gather your thoughts to how we criticize them. That's not the right method. So we need to have a reasoning skill as well. So Muslims, when they do da'wah, they need to know reasoning skill. This is very important because I see this missing in many da'wah activities. They just do Quran and Sunnah. They don't have the reasoning skill. When you talk to somebody who not believing in Quran and Sunnah, how do you convince them? You have to bring them on the same page. Otherwise, it's a useless communication. That's why reasoning skill is important in da'wah. Maybe we can talk about it later. And then there's many ways of you doing through media. If you know how good you are a good writer, try to write articles in a newspaper or in the some publication that if you see somebody in the news attacking Islam, criticizing Islam or anti-Islam, you create a response, put it in the newspaper if you're good in writing. But if you're good in personal, you try to address them in your colleagues in the office or your schoolmates, or your neighbors. So there are many ways of responding. To be active in community life. You cannot just be in the masjid all the time. You need to be involved in your school, your kids' school, becomes PTO, involved in the library, involved in the community. Otherwise, people will not, know who's this guy. You need to be involved in the communities. Otherwise, they will not see you as a part of the community. So this is some of the verses from the Quran. Basically, Allah already mentioned this. The methods of da'wah, you need to be able to argue with the nice arguments. So this is a lot of, if you look at the verse of the Quran, but da'wah, there's a lot of methods that Allah tells us in the Quran. The Quran is full of reasoning. Even for atheists, agnostics, I use the Quran many times just to explain the Islamic position. And they kind of see, it clicks them, like, okay, I see now. So this is important for us to understand. So my invitation is everybody should understand how the Quran reasoning towards the people of other faith. And this is very important. For interfaith dialogue, we need to be respectful. So for example, you guys got invited in the church or synagogue, like Imam Samsi Ali, inshallah, will give us more experience. He's very experienced on this. You need to be respectful, do not patronize, do not criticize or offend other people's beliefs. And then we have to have a good intention. We go there to clarify some misconception or so to make a bonding, network with other people of other belief. And this is not the debates. When you have dialogue, dialogue is not a debate. So dialogue means you have to learn from each other. For example, the people who think like, I would like to know about Sharia, right? They usually the S word. Yesterday there is a session called Why Muslims Scared of S word, Sharia. But we cannot hide anymore. We have to explain what is Sharia means. Otherwise people think like we are basically hiding and stealth, like they call it a jihadi stealth jihadi, try to replace constitution with Sharia. So how do you reason with them? So this is something to clarify the, clear the air. So people, transparent, like, hey, this is what we are, like we don't have that intention, and then we just explain what it is. And then agree to disagree. Basically we commit, so even though we have different beliefs, we commit to the betterment of the society. So we should not, different beliefs should not divide us, basically. This has happened in the time of Rasulullah, right? In Medina, the Jews basically see Jesus as a illegitimate son, right? And the Christians see our Prophet, Muhammad SAW, is deceived by the devil, right? I mean, it's a fact. But we still can be neighbors. During the time of the Prophet, people live as neighbors. So we agree to disagree with the different belief, but we commit to the betterment of the society. And then we need to work on resolving the problems. So there are a lot of problems in our community. Mass shootings, right? People, right now, a lot of people scared of sending their kids to the... 1 minute? Yeah, 1 minute. Oh, sure.
Sorry for the disruption. I want to make one quick announcement that the registration for the Sisters Field Trip to the water park will end at 9:30. Again, it'll end at 9:30. For those that still wants to register for the water park for Sisters, Jazakallah khair.
So yeah, against the problems in society is a lot of, we face a lot of problems. Mass shootings is one of the problem, right? How we solve this problem? Everybody's scared of sending their kids to the school if there is any news, right? Anxiety, depression, suicides. There's a lot of homelessness in every big cities right now. How Muslims contribute to the solution, right? How we help the mayor of every city, hey, Muslim community propose the solutions. So we try to solve the addictions problem as well and moral literacy. So during the pandemic, the rate of depression is triple in US. This happened, I heard many times. We have a da'wah table every Saturday morning in Portland. And, like many people, when they visited, they ask, like, why God, the compassionate, creating this pandemic? So they basically question this, and they got depressed because they lost their job, they lost their beloved ones. And Muslims have the answer. Why we don't help them to understand from Muslim point of view is like this. And many people found Islam offered the solution to their peaceful life. So this is something that we can have that solution to our community, inshallah. So a lot of problem, gangs, trash, and all these problems in our communities. Bully, the teenagers or the kids in the school, they got this problem, bullying. And then the narcissism, many people, social media, youth, if nobody likes their article, they feel depressed. This is mental issue. Something that, we can help with this problem. So this is quote from Umar bin Khattab. So invite Islam even without words. And so people ask, like, how? With your manners, with your adab, your akhlaq. So this is something that we need to learn, how our behavior is seen as a representative of Islam. So just want to quickly share experience. This is I'm from Portland, Oregon, so this is what we have in Portland. So we have open house, in the masjid. We have open house 9/11. Usually we open the masjid, and a lot of people comes from church and from schools, college, and high school. We have interfaith dialogues from different parts of denominations. We also outreach to government officials. So we work with mayor, we work with law enforcement, we work with the Congress representative. So we need to be involved. If you are in a community, try to get involved in these activities. And we also involved in the, picnic with other churches or synagogue, or creating these events, movie events, and we show Prophet Muhammad SAW movies. And then we book the whole theater, basically. And then we have iftar together. I think everybody have this in every masjid. Iftar together, invite government officials. And this is also feeding the needy, the hunger, the homeless. So we work together with other churches, synagogues, try to, come together and feed the homeless. And also youth activities. We try to get together with other youth and then build like science fair, or, going to Congress together, or some coding programming workshop. And if you see something in the community, like this one in Portland, they put never buy halal, is the Islamic text to kill the non-Muslim. So we try to respond this by creating this a poster, and we put it in the restaurant. What is halal? So we explain that. Because otherwise people, when they read this, they will think like, okay, halal is supporting killing non-Muslim. And also peaceful protest. When during the, I think everybody can relate. If somebody, seeing the news, right? We always, oh Lord, please, this not Muslim, not Muslim, not Muslim, right? Because everybody is scared. If it's Muslims, then people hate Islam more. So that's why you have to express the protest demonstration. If some event happen, Muslims do not support this. So this sometimes people like, whoa, what's the purpose of this? But people support us. If we protest in downtown, for example, people like home there support, us basically. And this is da'wah table, like I mentioned before. We have this every Saturday. I encourage everybody in communities, have a task force, da'wah task force in your masjid or your locality, and train them, and have this. You don't have to preach. Just sit there, say that there's a free Quran, free brochures, and people comes and they ask questions. I learned a lot from this the last 3 years. A lot of questions from the non-Muslims. You learn transparency from them, like, I hate Islam because of this. Somebody came and say, you propagate satanic deception here. But how we deal with that kind of, we have to be patient. There's a lot of lesson from the Quran and Hadith how to deal with this in da'wah. So you have to be, first thing is create a task force, create this da'wah table. It will benefit, inshallah, it will benefit the communities. But don't preach, don't patronize people, don't think you are better than them. Just give information about Islam. I think that's about, I want to say, maybe we can share more experience later, inshallah, during question and answer. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Muhammad, Brother Rido. Next up, we will have Imam Shamsi Ali. Would you like to go?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ta'ala wa baraka ala nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira wa ba'd. I would like to begin once again by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity that this year we are gathered together after 2 years. Last year we had in LA, but before that we didn't have. For those of you who are attending for the first time, this Mu'tamar, alhamdulillah, have been for such quite a long time. It's quite mature. It began in 1997. And for myself, I've been a part of this Mu'tamar since then, and except once in Pittsburgh. I was in the Hajj at that time. This morning's topic is, for me, is very much a part of my journey as a Muslim in New York in particular, and in America in general. In fact, the topic basically has 3 main important points. Number 1 is engaging others, or engaging divides beyond divides. And number 2 is about Islamophobia. And the third one is certainly about interfaith, and how interfaith plays an important role in our attempt to minimize the phobia within the American society. So let me begin with the first point, and that is the importance of engaging others. We, Indonesian community, and including Muslim community in the States, as we said in Indonesia, oftentimes jago kandang. So we are so jagoan kalau di kandang sendiri. And I think it is a time for us to move forward beyond our own borders, beyond the doors of our own masajid, and go beyond. Because Islam is the religion that has been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only for particular people, but for every single human being. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. And there are many ayats that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been sent to all peoples, to all worlds. And that is our big responsibility, to reach out to every single human around us, our neighbors, so they'll be able to understand, to know what Islam is all about. Brothers and sisters, we are living, and I mentioned this repeatedly in many places, on many occasions, that we are living in a globalized world. Global world means there is a deep interconnectedness, there's a deep interdependence, there is a deep connection with everyone. No one can live by themselves or by himself or herself anymore. We have to get connected with everybody else. And so when Islam encourages us to reach out to people, and that is because, number 1, that's what Islam is all about. And number 2, because that is the reality of the world where we live in, that we cannot live exclusively anymore. Brother Rida mentioned a lot of things in terms of outreach. And I think for those of you New Yorkers here, you know that I myself, since particularly after the 9/11, have been quite, if I might say, I pushed myself a lot in doing outreach. Either it is to other religious communities, to the local governments, or even national governments. I was blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have visited the White House at least 3 times during President Bush at that time, for many reasons, along with interfaith leaders in New York City. My point here, we cannot afford anymore to just do everything else with ourselves. We need to build cooperation, partnership with everyone around us. It's number one. Number two, Islamophobia. The word which is very famous, very popular, well known, and very relevant. Because as Muslims living in America, we are facing this every day at every situation. Do not think that Islamophobia is something new. Don't think that Islamophobia occurred only because of the 9/11 in 2001 in the United States, or because of Donald Trump having a president here in the United States, and he wanted to ban the Muslims entering into the United States. Islamophobia is an historic, it's a part of the journey of da'wah. If you study the Prophet, the whole Prophet of Allah, from Adam alayhi salatu wassalam to Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam, Mala, the leaders of his community opposed him. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam was opposed by Namrud. Musa alayhi salatu wassalam was opposed by Fir'aun. Isa alayhi salatu wassalam was opposed by the Jewish leaders at that time. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was opposed by Abu. You have Abu Lahab, you have Abu Jahl. So Abu sometimes you have that in the community also. So it's been historic. And it's a part of natural path of da'wah. It is a natural part of da'wah. Wherever you make da'wah, you're going to be challenged. Either it is internally, sometimes internally, even if worse. Don't think that Islamophobia only perpetrated by non-Muslims. Sometimes when I go to Indonesia, our own brothers and sisters in Indonesia complain how to face the Islamophobia in our own country, Indonesia. So Islamophobia basically is a natural part of this da'wah. And the more you make da'wah, the more you're going to be challenged. That is the natural part of this da'wah. But when you talk about America, in general, Islamophobia also is not a new one. It's an historic. Let me just tell you this one. Before the 9/11, before the pandemic in 2020, I was in Europe, in 9 countries in Europe, 9 countries. I was in Germany, I was in Austria, Belgium, and some other countries. And one of the countries that I visited was Serbia. And you know the Serbia's history with Bosnia. And this country is so beautiful, tremendously, amazingly beautiful. There are many great places in Serbia that need to be seen. Ottoman Empire was there. It's a lot of Islamic history. So I visited one of the places and I wanted to drink a coffee. I love coffee. And I saw the people drinking Turkish coffee. And I love Turkish coffee. So I wanted to order Turkish coffee and I said, can I have Turkish coffee? And someone whispered to me, don't say Turkish here. It is not Turkish coffee here in Serbia. So what do you mean? He said, don't say it's Turkish coffee. I said, why? So which coffee is this? He says, this is special coffee. Why you don't want to call it Turkish coffee? They said because the word Turkish is so scary to them. Because of the Ottoman is connected to Turkey. So don't say it Turkish coffee. Call it special coffee. So look at this. This is phobia. Has been such an story. One of the things that I mentioned recently many times in different places is about the history, Islamic studies in the Western society. I don't know if any of you students here taking master or PhD in Islamic studies. In the past, and even today still, Islamic studies in the Western society is known as, or known by two names. Either it is Middle Eastern studies, in other words, Islam is the religion of the Middle Eastern, or Orientalism. Orientalism. Now, why Islam is known as Orientalism? Because the world is being divided, and because of colonial mentality, the world is being divided into two: Western world and non-Western world. Recently, I attended the World Peace Forum in Solo under the patron of Professor Din Shamsuddin, and I challenged the attendance. I was one of the speakers, basically. I challenged the audience. What does it mean in your minds when you say West and East? What is the meaning of Western nations and non-Western nations? Some try to define that Western nations mean those who are living in the west part of the world, North America and Europe. And I said to them, how about Australia or New Zealand? Because the white Australian and the New Zealanders, they don't want to be known as Eastern. They will consider themselves Western. So what is the meaning of West and East here? That is a part of colonial mentality. And that's why when Islam is called Orientalism, it means that Islam is the religion of the Orientals, not the Western. But who are the Western? The Western are those who are more educated, more advanced, more even civilized, more powerful, while the rest are not. So Islam is the religion of those who are not educated, less smart, not civilized, no freedom, no democracy, not gender equality. That's what Islam is all about, and that's why they call Islam as Orientalism. This is Islamophobia way of putting this, one of the studies in America or in the Western society. And then we come to the wars, brothers and sisters. When the war happened between Iraq and Iran, Iranian-Iraqi wars, in some minds of Americans, look at the Muslims. They love war, they love to fight each other. When the war in Afghanistan happened, the Mujahideen fought against Soviet Union. They say, look at the Muslims, they love to fight. So on until Gulf War first against Saddam, Gulf War second against Saddam, and then the pinnacle of all when it happened in 2001, the attack on WTC. WTC, brothers and sisters, is not only a tall building. We have to understand that WTC, WTC kata orang Indonesia, it is such a paramount important in the minds of Americans. And why is such important? Why WTC is such an important building? It's not only because it is the center of business. It is the symbol of capitalism. And you know what capitalism means in the Western minds? Capitalism means din for them. It's a way of life. Because everything is about capital. So what the WTC, when it is attacked and it is destroyed, and it is known that it is attacked by Islam, destroyed by Muslims who are inspired by Islam, it means that Islam had come to destroy capitalism. And capitalism means Western civilization. So Islam is against Western civilization, while Western civilization is known as everything is positive, while the non-Western is negative. So Islam is all negative. Look at the way they portrayed Islam, brothers and sisters. So Islamophobia is not new. It has been historic. Do not misunderstand once again. It's that been historic. But now we are coming to why Islamophobia happens. There are many reasons here. Brother Rida mentioned some. But coming back once again, number one is historical phobia, historic phobia. Phobia about history. Because when you read about Islam that had been in power for over 7 centuries in Spain, they are so scared that Islam has come to America and Europe, and they use this word, to take over, to take over. Taking over is a propaganda have been used by some to make the people are so scared about Islam. This is historic phobia. They are so scared about the history that Islam is coming back again to take power and to become powerful and take over America. And that's why when Keith Ellison and the other African-American congressman, and then Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib became a Congress members, they say, you see, they are inspired by Ikhwanul Muslimin, Muslim Brotherhood. They are infiltrated America. They are going to take over America. It's a part of the thing that we have to know. Number two, because of media and politics. Media and politics. And his brother Rida mentioned about the mosque near ground zero. It is not ground zero mosque. Don't use that terminology anymore. Because that is precisely the way they wanted to present that this masjid is built as a sign of Muslims' victory against America. So they call it ground zero mosque. They came to destroy WTC in ground zero, and now they are coming to build a masjid in the ground zero. That is the way to build image and perception. Ground zero mosque, if I may use the word again, is called Park 51 Islamic Center. Park 51 Islamic Center, you have to know that. It's a name. Park 51 is the name of the street and Islamic Center. So that's a very simple name, Park 51 Islamic Center. It was a very humble project. It was a Bloomingdale building. So one of our brothers, his name is Sharif Al-Gamal, who was a property business in Manhattan. He's originally from Egypt, and he came to this country when he was only 5 years old. So after the 9/11 happened, he remembered that he's a Muslim. 9/11 has a lot of, blessings in disguise. So he became aware that he's a Muslim. So one day he went for Salatul Jum'ah in Masjid Manhattan also. There's a masjid called Masjid Manhattan downtown, near Ground Zero 2. And he didn't find any space inside of the building, so he prayed outside. And he realized that why we cannot have a bigger masjid? And he's a rich man. So he went around finding a place, and he found this Bloomingdale's building to be sold, and he bought it for $4 million cash. And then he wanted to turn that into a masjid. But you know what? At that time, there was an election season in New York, and one of the candidates, Republican candidate, his name is Rick Lazio, he said, look at the Muslims. They wanted to build a mosque in ground zero. And they create a video with ground zero falling down and then the masjid going up. So American people are so upset. The sentiments are aflame. This masjid is rejected nationwide in America. That is because of media and politicians. They use this image, they use these religious sentiments to gain votes from other people. Of course, the other reason why Islamophobia is rising in America, because it has become an industry. I don't have to talk about this, but I want you to watch. There is a YouTube video, Al Jazeera, called U.S. Islamophobia Industry, or U.S. Islamophobia Inc. You can search on YouTube. It is a very comprehensive YouTube video about the industry of Islamophobia in America, how many people are becoming richer. They take this as a part of their incomes against Islam. But finally, brothers, in terms of why Islamophobia, because of the Muslim factor. What does it mean, Muslim factor? It means many people in the world are scared of Islam because we Muslims fail to represent the real Islam in our real life. And one of the challenges that I've been asked here in America many times by our American friends, they say, Imam, if one day Islam becomes the majority religion in America, which country do you think that America will be like? Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt? And that is because we fail to represent al-Islam. We preach that Islam is so beautiful, so advanced, Islam is berkemajuan, Islam is peaceful, but oftentimes we are the most, we had that failure, to represent the face of Islam. So here, coming back to the topic, it is very important to do our part in minimizing Islamophobia. And Brother Rida has mentioned a lot about the importance of da'wah and how to make da'wah. And that is, of course, because he is experienced in making da'wah in America. But let me just add some more point to that. Da'wah is the point. Da'wah is about education. And da'wah is not only about preaching, it's not about talking or speeches. We can give fiery speech, but da'wah is not only speeches. Da'wah is about our life in general. Da'wah is from head to toe, from toe to head, in and out. Every single thing that is related to our life is a part of our da'wah. So da'wah is a must. So let me just go directly to one of the most important way of da'wah in America, and that is interfaith itself. But before that, let me explain to you what is interfaith, what interfaith is all about. Because there is a lot of misunderstanding in our communities. There's a lot of misunderstanding within the Muslim community about interfaith. Interfaith is a new terminology. And interfaith is not to make out the faith in dialogue, because faith cannot dialogue. So interfaith basically is about how to try to find a way in order to build an understanding, but not to compare between faiths, because faith cannot be compared to one another. My master degree is comparative studies of religion, but it doesn't mean to compare religion, because as Muslims who believe that inna dina inda Allahi al-Islam, you cannot compare Islam with others. How are you going to compare Islam with others? So there is no comparison here. So what is interfaith then? There are two extreme views. In some minds of Indonesian, they consider interfaith is an attempt to unify the religion, to make religions only one. It means every religion is the same. And sometimes they have this philosophy. This is a big, huge ocean, and all the seas that came from different areas, and all waters are basically flowing into the same ocean. They say truth is only one, al-haqqu min rabbik. But truth can come from Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. So it goes back to the same truth, absolute truth. So they wanted to say all religions are the same. This is an extreme way of understanding interfaith. Brothers and sisters, religions cannot be unified. Our Christian and Catholic brothers, if you go to them and say, your religion is the same with my religion, they will be offended. Yesterday, they celebrated so-called Christmas. And it is very fundamentally different between the way we see Isa, Jesus, and the way they see him. And how are you going to say that religion is the same? There is not two single religions the same. It's different. But being different doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. It doesn't mean that we cannot cooperate. It doesn't mean that we cannot work together. On the other one, there's an extreme view says that interfaith is haram. Why is haram? Because Prophet Muhammad never did it in Medina. And that is a misunderstanding of the history. So what is interfaith? Interfaith basically for myself is not only because we are living in America as a minority, but interfaith is referred to one of the most important ayah in the Holy Quran. Let me stand here. Surah Al-Hujurat. And Surah Al-Hujurat is mostly talking about ethics. It's about adab. How to connect with Allah, how to connect ourselves with Rasulullah, how to connect ourselves with the Muslims. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins Surah Al-Hujurat, everything from ayah number 1 with amanu. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala arrived in the 13, ayah number 13, Allah changed from amanu into ya ayyuhan nas. Why Allah changed from amanu ya ayyuhan nas? Because ayah number 13, Allah says, ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. There is a mutual understanding here. To build a mutual understanding. So interfaith basically is an effort to build a mutual understanding between communities. But it doesn't mean to unify all communities in one ideology, in one faith and tradition. It is just simply impossible. That's what Islamophobia, interfaith is all about. But the question here, why such Islamophobia is so important? There are many, again, reasons why Islamophobia is so important. It's not only because we are minority here in America once again. Of course, it is important too. But why Islamophobia is so important? Let me just go directly to the connection, with the connection of this topic. Number one, because dawah, as Brother Rida mentioned, must begin with our attempt to make our friends understand what Islam is all about. You know, just 2 days ago, for those who attend my WhatsApp groups, or I have sent out an article I wrote yesterday in between of the sessions, that last Friday, one of our brother, African American, young African American, became a Muslim, alhamdulillah, in our masjid in Jamaica Muslim Center. And the reason is very simple. I was delivering a khutbah about Qatar and World Cup. Okay, the topic of my khutbah was about Qatar as a hosting the World Cup. And I talk about how Islam had presented itself in the true face of it, in the true face of Al-Islam itself. So one of the students passed by from St. John University to Hillside Avenue, so our masjid is nearby, passed by, and our microphone basically can reach up to 2 blocks. So he listened to the khutbah, and he sat down, and after the khutbah he came back and watched the people praying. So after the prayer he asked someone who delivered that sermon. So the brother brought him to us, and alhamdulillah, within 10-15 minutes he became a Muslim. Do you know why? Because we present it, alhamdulillah, in a true manner. Islam is true. But to present Islam in a true manner is a challenging one. So coming back again, why interfaith is so important? I consider interfaith is, in Indonesian language, called pembersihan. Jadi sebelum menanam, before we plant in the gardens, you have to clean it, right? How it is possible for us to convey Islam or to invite people to Al-Islam, even just to learn Al-Islam, if the people have phobia in their minds, if the people have hatred in their minds. So Islamophobia basically is an attempt to minimize that fear. Let me just give you an example here. Two friends of mine. I mentioned one in the last session, in the last khatira after Maghrib, before yesterday. I think, yeah, before yesterday. For those New Yorkers, you know Masjid Ar-Rahman on 29th Street and 5th Avenue. There's a small masjid behind the church. The pastors of this church happen to be my friend. His name is Arthur Calianro. So Arthur Calianro, after 9/11, he hated Islam. He hated Islam. And Islam is dangerous. Islam is enemy. Islam is an ideology that had come to destroy our, what's so-called Western civilization. He hated Islam. But what happened one day, he stopped a taxi. He wanted to go uptown. I don't have to repeat the story because you have heard it in the masjid. But we continue our connection, our relationship through interfaith dialogue. And you know, my brothers and sisters, within the time that Islamophobia is so high in New York particularly, Arthur Calianro had become a frontliner, in the front line to fight against Islamophobia. So you can imagine a Christian leader, a pastor, is fighting against Islamophobia. And that is one of the results of interfaith. And our interfaith is normally during the Thanksgiving celebration. thousands of people listening to us talking about what does it mean Thanksgiving to our own perspective as Muslim, Christians, and Jews. This is number one. But the most unique one is with the Jewish community. How long do you want? I have 5 minutes. With the Jewish community. And this one is very challenging. Do you know why interfaith with the Jewish community is most challenging? Because of the Palestine and Israel issue. And I personally have been misunderstood by many Muslims who say, you know, Shamsi Ali is not loyal to the Palestinians anymore. Shamsi Ali is already, you know, a lot of accusations, by the way, but that's fine. But it's fine. After 9/11, I was the one who represented the Muslim community, accompanied President Bush along with other religious leaders in New York to go to Ground Zero for the first time. And I could hear at the time in the bus, because we took bus, in the bus, how people talk about Islam. It's painful. At that time, I was only 4 years in New York. I didn't know anybody, so I could not respond anything. I could not talk. I tried to resist myself to say anything, because otherwise I will inflame the discussion, the debate. But people accuse the Muslims of being terrorists, Islam is an inspiration of terror, just in the bus. And I was there as a Muslim, so you can imagine. When President Bush announced that he wanted to attack Afghanistan, and the words of Bush was like this: they will hear us. They will hear us. So I asked my friend, who was an imam, only 2 imams, Imam Pasha from Harlem, say, Imam, what does it mean, they will hear us? He said, that is a war declaration. I was only 7 meters from him at that time. But my point here, brothers and sisters, I could not do anything. I could not say anything. And then I was the person who represented the Muslims at the Yankee Stadium. Still, people are talking in the host, how you call that before going to the stage? Holding rooms. How they talk about Islam. So what happened? I encouraged myself to say, Shamsi Ali, you have to go out. Meet those friends. So I was courageous enough to go out to some churches and for Masjid, have some Masjid al-Hikmah Jama'at here. You know, after the 9/11, among the masjid that it visited by some Christian leaders, they brought us flowers, Masjid al-Hikmah, the Indonesian masjid in New York City. Do you know why? Because we reached out to one of the church named Sunnyside Church on 48th Street and 46th Avenue on Sunnyside. This church came to our masjid, they brought flower, and they say, what we can do for you. I know that Muslims are in a difficult moment. Why our mosque was receiving flower from others? Because of that outreach program, interfaith program. But coming back to the Jewish one, 2004, tsunami happened, and 2004 also, Pope John II died. Pope John II died. So I was invited by CBS television to an interview on Pope John's interfaith outreach from non-Christian perspective. I represented the Muslim, and in the studio there is one rabbi representing the Jewish community. When we sat in the studio, I extended my hand to shake hand, and he didn't want to receive my hand. So it's okay. You have to be patient. So the interview, we finish it, I get my card, and we disperse. 6 months later, he called me and said, Imam, can we meet? So I said, who is this? This is Rabbi, this is Mark Schneier. This is Mark. Who is Mark? Rabbi Mark Schneier, the one you met at the studio. Okay, let's meet. And when we met, the first one I asked him, Rabbi, I'm from Makassar, and we are very open. Rabbi, why you didn't want to shake my hand? And he was laughing. He said, Imam, I had 2 reasons. Number one, because I did not like Muslims. He was honest. Number 2, I was not sure that you are Muslims. I said, why? Because I thought Muslims must be an Arab. So if your nose is a little bit not long, kurang mancungnya, kurang iman. So it's true. I said, why then you invite me now? He said, because I have seen you several times on TVs, and it looks like you are a good ambassador for your faith. So to make a story short, brothers and sisters, both of us agreed that we have to do something to minimize the misunderstanding that we have on the back of our head about one another. What we have, Muslims, to be honest, about the Jewish community on the back of our head, every single evil in the world is perpetrated by the Jewish people. And we have that conspiracy theory in our minds. What the Jewish people have in their minds, every single Muslim had been born to kill the Jewish people. So we have to do something to minimize it, and we agreed to organize the first what we call Summit of Imams and Rabbis in the United States of America in 2005. In the morning, we did it in his synagogue, and when we met in the morning in synagogue, every imam, when he only talked about Palestine. Every rabbi, when he talks only about Israel. So looks like Jewish and Muslim have nothing to do else but Palestine and Israel. From 9 o'clock until around 12 o'clock. So I whispered to the rabbi, I say, Rabbi, we cannot move anywhere. So say, what are we going to do? Let's talk something else. So we moved to our masjid in the afternoon, and the rabbi say, what are you going to do? Say, ask to your friends one question, simple question, and I will ask to my friends, I mean imams, the same question. What is the question? I say, ask them, do you want to fight or you want to peace? Fight or peace? I ask to the imam, fight or peace? And every single rabbi say peace, every single imam says peace. So it means we have peace. The challenge right now is how to get into that peace. So we announced to everyone, the rabbis and the imams, that we have seen the promised land. The challenge is how to get into that promised land. To make the story short, because of the time, brothers and sisters, Mark Schneier, the person who wrote a book with me called Sons of Abraham, Issues Divide and Unite Jews and Muslims, and our book today is being translated into 6 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, French, Russians, and Kazakh language, and also Indonesian had been translated a long time ago. This man, Rabbi Mark Schneier, not only that he became a partner in Interfaith, but he's also a partner in defending Al-Islam. For those who are New Yorker, you know that we organized twice a demonstration called Today I'm a Muslim Too. In 2008 against Peter King, the congressman from Long Island, who organized a hearing in Congress against Muslims. We organized the first rally against him called Today I'm a Muslim Too. Thousands of people came to Times Square to say, I'm a Muslim too. You discriminate against Muslim, discriminate me. There's a non-Muslim who say that. That is because from him, as a Jewish rabbi. Then when President Donald Trump announced that he wanted to ban the Muslim in 2017, on February 19, we organized the biggest demonstration in New York City, Times Square. Ten thousands of people, 99% of those are non-Muslims say, today I am a Muslim too. That rally or demonstration also was initiated by the Rabbi Mark Schneier. This is the result of interfaith in minimizing Islamophobia, brothers and sisters. Now let me end this, brother. It's about Sharia. Sharia is one of the scary words in America. So in 2000, when Barack Obama wanted to become president, I forgot which is there. Sharia is one of popular word. It's become a kind of words that's being used to campaign. So Rabbi Mark Schneier came to me and he said, Imam, why people are so scared of that word Sharia? What is Sharia? So I don't have to give a definition because it's difficult for him. So I said to him, Rabbi Mark Schneier, as a rabbi, as a Jew, when you eat anything or you eat only kosher? And he said, I'm eating only kosher. Are you eating kosher because of health issue or religious reason? Say religious reason. Similarly, Rabbi, and when I eat, I have to make sure that my food is halal. And for me, halal is healthy, but it's not the reason. The real reason is because that is a religious law for me. And then I ask you the second question, Rabbi, are you circumcised? And he said, yes. I said, you don't have to show me. I believe you. I am also circumcised. And it is not only for health reason, it is because of religious reason. That's what Sharia for me. Similarly, you are practicing your religion, and you cannot be a Jew unless you follow your religious law. Similarly, I cannot be Muslim unless I follow my religious law. That's the rabbi who fights against Islamophobia, and that is one of the real results of Islam, of Interfaith, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. Thank you, Imam Shamsi and Brother Muhammad Ridho, for the wonderful speech. We will now open up to discussion and questions.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Imam Shamsi. Continuing about the Sharia law, thank you so much. One of the Islamophobia that is, in my opinion, somewhat critical is the from within a Muslim community. Just continuing on the Sharia law, how far, because I asked some young people in the past about the Islamic State, what are they thinking about the Islamic State? And so please correct me, in my understanding, the dream of Islamic State is something, in my opinion, is our freedom, and as well as I think we should think about it. I think we should dream about Islamic State. It's not something that is prohibited. But in their mind, they say, no, Islamic is not Islamic State. So can you please elaborate on that? Thank you. Sorry, Brother Ida, I don't have questions for you.
This is an issue which is very much sensitive when the people remember the word Islamic State in relevance to what is going on in the Middle East. But if we mean Islamic State, which is a state or a country or a nation which is inspired by the teaching of Islam, that's what we mean. And to be honest with you, many non-Muslim countries or nations are more Islamic than the Muslim nations. So if you want to say Islamic states are the states who represent the values of Islam. And in fact, the majority of those who are Islamic country or nations are non-Islamic majority nations. New Zealand, or even America. America is very much Islamic in many ways. Let me just give you one example. In America, when someone is accused of mishandling his responsibility in the public place, in the public position, either it's executive or legislative, accused, let's say, corruption, he will resign because he feels his integrity is already lost. No integrity. He has no integrity to hold that position anymore. But you know, in some Muslim countries, and I don't have to mention, but in Indonesia, let's say, some people are already in the jail and still holding his positions. So which Islamic value that we are holding here? And you say this on Islamic State. So Islamic State is not only, how you call things that we mentioned. Islamic State is something that is implemented based on the Islamic values. And when you talk about democracy, to be honest with you, democracy and shura, of course, is not same. But the closest concept to shura is democracy. And now when you talk about Islamic State, you are having this theocracy that is from father to son to grandson. Do you know why Bin Laden is so angry to America? Because Bin Laden was sent basically to Afghanistan to fight against Soviet Union. And he got his weapons from Pakistan, from Saudi Arabia, American weapons through Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and given to Bin Laden some of, and he fought against Soviet Union. So when he won the battle in Afghanistan, he wanted to come back to his own nation, to his own country, Saudi Arabia. He wants some political share. But because of the kingdom, it is impossible for him. He is from Yemen, by the way. It's impossible to get some portion of political power in Saudi Arabia. So he was so angry to Saudi Arabia. Now Saudi Arabia is seen so connected to America. So instead of expressing his anger to Saudi Arabia, he expressed his anger to America. So we have just opened here. So coming back again, your point about Islamic State is not formality here. And in Indonesia, for example, we know that we are Negara Pancasila. We are Pancasila, we are state or countries based on Pancasila. But Alhamdulillah, Pancasila itself is being inspired
by Islamic or by religious teachings in general. When we talk about Tuhanan, that's a very smart. It's smart. Our religious, our fathers, founding fathers, Indonesia founding fathers are very smart. They didn't use the word Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, but they used ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa. Because when they say Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, it means only one God. Now it means for Hindu people it's difficult to understand. But when they say ketuhanan means can be understood by every religion. And that's why it is relevant to the Hindus, it's relevant to the Buddhists, it's relevant to the Christians, but most important, relevant to the Muslims. Why? Because for us, ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa means Qul Huwallahu Ahad. It means Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. It means La ilaha illallah. That's for us Muslims. So for us, Indonesia is Islamic, even though they say it is Pancasila country. But this is Islamic, which is inspired by the values of Islam. So again, coming back to the point of Islamic states, this is very sensitive because of the misunderstanding. And I think we have to clarify to the people that, but very sad that most of those, some of those who misunderstand the word Islamic in relevant to the country is the Muslim themselves. And that is because they do not understand the concept. So the purpose of Muslim state or Islamic state, it's a dangerous word when it, again, was related to ISIS, for example. Islamic state is to lead that into the purpose, and that is baldatun tayyibatun wa rabbun ghafur. That is the purpose, basically. And we found that in many, many Muslim nations, alhamdulillah.
Next question.
Hello. I just wanted to share something that I went through, something that I experienced. So basically, after the Boston bombings, there was these mostly Jewish people. They were cause the bomber, he went to my masjid, and then they're like, see, he's you're teaching terrorism, but really he went to Jummah there, and at the Jummah it's just a normal Jummah. So then there's a bunch of police at the masjid just watching, and we were just doing a normal Jummah, and we were just putting our shoes on, and I was just yeah, we're normal people, but because just one person happened to be a bomber, like, they're all scared. But I just wanted to share that, like. Oh, also one time there was an FBI woman that came to the masjid, and then when my mom told her name, like, she took out a notebook and wrote my mom's name down, which is not normal. But I think, like, what would you say, like, for the people, would you say, like, for the people who are, like, super, like, into thinking that Muslims are terrorists, like, don't you think just, like, inviting them and seeing, like, that we're normal people really helps?
Yeah, that's good observation. Basically, like in Indonesia, there is an Indonesian saying, tak kenal maka tak sayang, right? We don't love that we don't know. So I think one of the approach that we try to, approach our non-Muslims, friends and colleagues, basically we try to get a personal approach. They need to know, like, we are family members, we have families too. We live here, we have, all the same needs like they do, right? I mean, we have kids, we have, our kids go to school here, we go to groceries, we live here. So we are human beings too. So, but if they don't know you personally, they might think, something like you're suspicious. But if for example, you invite to, our neighbors to our home, right? I have, my neighbor used to be, right now he moved to somewhere else, but when Trump won the election, that night, midnight, he fired the fireworks. I was so scared, like, what's going on, like fireworks at midnight. So, and he did not have any Muslim friends. He just moved, and then the next day I came and tried to, say salam, like, hey, how are you? And, introduce myself. And then during Ramadan, I invite them to my home for, iftar with other neighbors as well. And then we give food during the Eid. And then when I went to Hajj, I have my kids there, 4 of them, the oldest one 18 that time, but I told him, David, I want to go to pilgrimage. He said, what, are you crazy, man? Like, it's a stampede there. During that time, there's stampede, 2015. Why you have kids? But you know that means he's concerned about us because he knows us personally. It's like a buddy, right? It's like your friend, even though we have different beliefs. But then he said, don't worry, I'll watch your kids. And then he cleaned all my, gutter and, because you close friend. But if you don't know, the person suspect, suspicious about you because they don't know you personally. So that's one thing maybe.
After the 9/11 in New York City, it was tremendously challenging for us Muslim New Yorkers and Muslim American in general. And there was a time where the police department engaged in what's so-called surveillance, mosque surveillance. So they put cameras around the mosque to watch who are coming to the mosque, to the masajid. So one day I was in Indonesia at the time, and I read on New York Post, one of the newspapers in New York, that the police are watching several individuals in New York, and one of those individuals, my name is mentioned there. And I have been a trainer within the department. I'm a cultural trainer in New York, in the police department in New York. I train them on what's so-called religious sensitivity training in New York. And so I came back to America, and the people warned me, be careful in the airport, because maybe they will do something in the immigration. So I came back, and I asked to meet with the police commissioner of New York. At that time, his name is Raymond Kelly. So I had lunch with him, 2 of us, 2 imams and himself, in one of the great Turkish restaurants near the United Nations. And I asked him, Mr. Commissioner, what did I wrong? And I read my name that I'm watched by the police. And he was laughing. He said, Imams, that is a mistaken, this is a misunderstanding. I say, there's a surveillance around. And I say, Imam, it's not only mosque. Everywhere you find camera in New York, churches, synagogues, even governmental offices being watched. And Imam, nothing wrong with that. If you don't make any wrong, why you have to be worried? So I said, by the way, there is a lot of misunderstanding in the community that police are watching us, those who are coming to the masjid, and so on and so forth. So I asked him 3 things. I said, Mr. Commissioner, can you help us in minimizing the misunderstanding? Because you cannot do your job as a police without trust from the community. We need to have a cooperation. So I said, what do you want, Imam? He said 3 things. Number 1, do you have any in the department? Do you have any police officer in the department that you can appoint as your deputy, higher rank? And he was thinking for a while, and he said, we don't have him. We have someone, happened to be an Arab from Lebanon, but he's a Christian. So I said, okay, as long as an Arab, and his name is like Muslim name, by the way. So okay, so he became a deputy commissioner, that police. I asked him that. The second one, I said, what do you want, Imam? He said, the second one, Mr. Commissioner, can you appoint a special advisor for you from the Muslim community? And alhamdulillah, in New York City, there is a special advisory committee for the commissioner, 7 people. I was one of them, but then later on, I back up, I resigned because there are some other assignments for me. So there are 7 Muslim leaders advising the religious commissioner on things related to the Muslim community. If anything happened to the Muslim community, do not go to anyone else, go to them and ask what is going on. We had that 7 imams in New York City. But the third one, I asked him, I say, Mr. Commissioner, can we educate the police department on Islam? And alhamdulillah, he agreed. Every time, before the officers graduating to become a police in New York, we teach them about Islam. Only 2 hours, but it's a big impact. And I am, as I mentioned, I am a cultural sensitivity training in the police academy in New York City. It is paid, by the way. Dapat gaji untuk itu. Ya. Dapat gaji ya. Jadi siapa yang tidak mau kan? Jadi my point here, coming back to the sister, it is about continue pursue the engagement. Engage them, come out, invite them to come to your community. You know, even FBI, to be honest with you, if you go Google some Shamsi Ali, just not Imam Shamsi Ali, there is a group in New York City called Islamic Thinker Society. They wrote an article on YouTube, on the internet saying Shamsi Ali is a FBI mouthpiece. Do you know why? Because I have been lecturing the FBI since 2003. I lectured the FBI about Islam. And because of that, my engagement, they consider me as a mouthpiece of the FBI. So that's the point, brothers and sisters. We have to continue engagement. We have to reach out. And alhamdulillah, we have a good connection with the police department. We have connection with mayor office. When Mayor what is his name? Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York City, just 7 days after his appointment, after he was inaugurated, the first house of worship, not masjid only, the first house of worship he visited is our masjid, Jamaica Muslim Center. And he came to say, thank you so much for giving me trust to become your mayor. It's the first masjid, the first house, not only masjid, the first house of worship, Eric Adam, the mayor of the city at the time.
Thank you. I believe you have time for one more question. I think it's you raised your hand first. Right?
Assalamualaikum Imam and Pak Rida. My name is Rana. I have a question. So in the department history in my university in Nebraska, they have a course called the history of radical Islam. So the Muslim Student Association already sent a letter asking to drop the course, but it is still there, and we don't really know like what we should do for that. Do you have any suggestion? Thank you.
This is similar to the case of Peter King, a congressman from Long Island, who wanted to organize a hearing, radicalization of the Muslim community in America. So we opposed that, and we organized different rallies and demonstrations, but you don't have to do that demonstrations, by the way. But we suggested that you can have hearing about radicalization, but not only Muslim radicalization, but radicalization of religious communities. Because you will find radicalism in every community. And we can expose radicalism in each and every community in America and around the world. So similarly, when it comes to the issue of history of radicalism, you know, I think it is fair to suggest to them that instead of radicalism in Islam, radicalism in religious communities. You know, because you find that even right now, the government, the Israeli government right now, under Benjamin, is radicals. It's radical. You know, we are talking about many presidents in the Western nation right now. So mostly Brazil, for example, it's like just Donald Trump America. You know, so radicalism is being, you know, growing up at the moment in the Western society. So I think you just need to write more letters that, you know, instead of singling out Islam, why you don't mention all religious communities? Because in each religion, even Buddhism is considered by their followers the most peaceful religion. But you know what happened in Rohingya? In Myanmar? So no single religious community can consider themselves safe from the blood on their hands. There is something that needs to be pointed out. So I think suggest them to have this radicalism in all religious communities and not only Muslim community, to be fair.
One more, just contact CARE. Usually CARE, Committee American Islamic Relations, usually they have this a lot of pressure for, you know, like corporate or university, or if they do some anti-Islam, you know, action. So inshallah they will help.
Jazakallah khair. Unfortunately, we've reached 10:30. I know there was still a lot more questions that want to be asked, but unfortunately we haven't ran out of time. I want to say thank you to both Imam Shamsi Ali and Brother Rido for both of their wonderful speeches and discussion. I do believe it's very important to reach out to people outside your local circles. Right? As I said, we cannot be in our basket, right? Whether it be with our friends, our colleagues, or even our neighbors, we must reach out and display what it means to be a Muslim. If there's nothing else, I will close. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Jazakallah everyone for coming. Thank you for attending, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Just a quick announcement. Inshallah, next year in New York City, we are going to organize the first peace rally, inshallah, and our Grand Marshal will be Sheikh Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal, inshallah. And the second one, for those who are from Houston, for Ramadan Pohan, I will be in Rice University, inshallah, sometime next year to talk about Islam, organized by Professor Considine. Craig Considine is a Catholic professor. He is an anthropologist, but he wrote about Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, 3 books about Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he's going to invite me to talk about Islam in Rice University. And inshallah, don't forget, next year we're going to organize one of the biggest rally, not rally, but parade, peace rally, peace parade in New York. Shaquille O'Neal will be our Grand Marshal, inshallah.